Thank you. Okay. So, I was fascinated by Steve's comment right at the beginning of the convening when he said, we've got lots of business people here. We don't normally have those. So I rewrote the presentation to include a lot of business stuff, I hope. So, quick introduction. What is ISO 20022? The idea is it's a global standard which covers every kind of financial business transaction.
Sorry.
Check.
If we could have everyone in the room please sit so that we can proceed and just catch up with time. Thank you.
Okay. You hear me? Pedro, can you hear me? Good. So, ISO is made up of message definitions, which are larger than is customarily thought. So an ISO 20022 definition, first of all, is a set of dictionary definitions of data objects. Underlying the messages themselves is a data dictionary. Then it also has a set of external codes which define the sorts of enumerations that can be used in definitions. And the two-part message definition report. One of those explains the business context which the message is supposed to be used in, or which a set of messages are supposed to be used in. And the second describes the content of the messages in detail, which are not just the data items, but also the rules that govern the interconnection between those items. And only after that is the message definitions themselves. People habitually, I think of the ISO message as essentially an XSD schema definition. It's not. There's plenty of other stuff. At present, it's XML only, but we're currently working on a JSON object definition which can be used as part of an API. So, I want to talk now about how changes get made in ISO 20022. So a member organization, first of all, submits a business justification that says there's something that ISO isn't currently doing, which it ought to do, and this is why. The business justification is reviewed by members of a standards evaluation group, which are specialized on particular kinds of financial message. So there's a securities one, there's a cards one, there's a foreign exchange one, which actually means foreign exchange trades, not individual foreign exchange in the sense that we understand it. And there's a payments one, which amazingly enough is the one that we like. If that business justification is approved, then an evaluation team is formed. And the purpose of the evaluation team is to analyze the business requirements in relation of the resources that are already present and decide how to do the, how to meet the requirements of the business justification in terms of changes to the ISO messages, which might either be changes to existing messages or alternatively completely new messages. Changes to existing messages can be approved by the lower level committee, the standards evaluation group. New messages have to be approved by the top level committee, the registration management group. So, where did we get to? At the top level, there's a registration management group. We belong to that. Below that, there's a payment standards evaluation group. We belong to that. We produced a business justification, and I'm happy to report that it has been sort of approved, and an evaluation team has now been formed. We started off submitting a business justification to make all of the changes that we thought we needed to make to bring ISO 20022 into the present-day world of payment systems. Unfortunately, we entered a death spiral. We'd proposed too many changes. The proposal was much too technical for most of the people who were reviewing it. People were scared, I think, to approve the whole package in case they had missed some crucial detail, and then everybody beat them up. And every time that we responded to a review, they said add more detail, so we added more detail, which in retrospect was a mistake. So, the chairs of the Payments Standards Evaluation Group and the Registration Management Group proposed an alternative approach. First of all, that we should concentrate on changes to existing messages. Second, that we should break those changes down into individual change requests, and that we should submit those change requests individually for consideration and approval. The standards evaluation group would manage the coordination of requests, so they took on the responsibility of ensuring that we didn't wind up in a situation where of 10 requests, 6 had been approved and 4 rejected, so we were really no further forward except we complicated the messages. The original bus justification would be suspended, and we would start with the changes to PAX 008, which is the ISO 20022 message where one financial institution, or DFSP as we would call it, asks another financial institution to execute a payment. Where are we now? So we prepared a document describing the changes that we thought would be required to the PAX 008 message to manage support for our things. We shared it with the Payments Standards Evaluation Group. They accepted it. And an evaluation team has been formed to review the change proposals. Now, membership of this evaluation team is open to any interested party. And it needs 2 types of people, basically. First of all, people who are experts in the ISO 20022 world, who are experienced with the dictionary, those sorts of people. But second, experts in the inclusive instant payment systems world. And that is the people in this room, I'm guessing. So, thus far, when you look down the list of people who are participating, I'm guessing we're not seeing many people who we would normally think of as being part of the inclusive instant payment systems world. So, I want to talk about what might be involved in that. There will be work involved. People will have to articulate the requirements of an IIPS in contrast with those of the existing participants. People will need to understand whether the technical solutions proposed are well aligned with our requirements, are in fact answers to what we need, or whether they just look like answers to what we need. And they will have to make and review proposals. So there'll be a reasonably considerable amount of work involved. If anybody's interested, go to the presentation, and that contains a link directly to the registering process for that group. Now, thinking about this, I figured that maybe not everybody would be interested in giving the time commitment that would be necessary to actually belong to the evaluation team. So we will be prepared, the Mojaloop Foundation, I think, will be prepared to host regular meetings to report on progress in the evaluation team, to highlight areas which are going to be discussed and talk about canvas community opinion, get people's opinions, and wind up, I would hope, with an agreed position for the IIPS world as a whole. And really to provide something where people could contribute to discussions without needing to make an intolerable time commit, because I know everybody's busy. If you're interested in that, please make contact with me, and I will try and set it up. Now, the first meeting of the evaluation team is scheduled, I'm happy to report, but actually I'm not happy to report. It's scheduled for next Monday. I was kind of hoping it would be last Monday so I could stand up and say, we had one, but we didn't yet. So this is a list of the individual requirements in our document. I'm not going to go through that in detail, though I had planned to. But again, if anyone wants to look at that and make comments or talk about it, I would be very happy to do so. I want to look at what it doesn't include. Come on, thank you. So it doesn't yet include address resolution. So the PAX message just says, please execute a payment. It assumes you've already gone through the execution phase. Sorry, the address resolution phase. It doesn't include the message which confirms the result of the execution request. That's a separate message, PAX 002. Well, I don't think that's as bad as it sounds, Andres. For other Mojaloop functionality, it doesn't include request to pay, it doesn't include 3 PPI, because actually ISO 20022 doesn't know about 3 PPI. It doesn't include foreign exchange, because it's all about big trades. It doesn't include authorization, and it doesn't include participant registration. Miller.
Quickly, when you do look at this, ACRI is the magic acronym you're looking for?
Is it?
Yeah, there's a set of There's a set of ISO messages in the 20022 suite that include ACRI. prefix that include all of the stuff you're looking for around the participants.
Around?
So participants.
Okay.
And of course, paying messages would be used in the case of a request to pay. So
Yeah.
so
No, that's right.
One should look at this from the holistic perspective and say, all of these messages appear to be what we want, but none of them work. Nothing will be removed from your dotted list here, except that there are messages that are intended for those things, which means you don't have to go for new registration.
No, I understand that completely.
Okay, thank you.
That side of
Sorry
it.
about that.
So all I'm saying is, when we have finished concentrating on this particular message, what will we still not have? Yeah. So you're right, request to pay is a pain 013, and we understand that, and we will eventually get round to that. Okay.
Sorry, Michael, can I add something perhaps?
You may add something, Julie.
I think, like Miller, to your comment, like the idea is effectively each time to look at the existing message type and understand the delta, and when there is a delta or no possible option for us to actually go and ask for a change request. And I think on some of the things as well, what we are trying to do is consult with other market infrastructure. This work will be heavily facilitated now that we have the evaluation group where we can actually ask all of our questions.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit now about identifiers, because that's something that has always appeared to us as a problem. ISO 2002 is run by banks and card companies, and they think that a bank account number, preferably an IBAN, is really the only thing that buys you access to these messages. Now, of course, well, no. It's their world. Yeah. So also, in particular, and this is more important, it doesn't support the concept of routing. As you might expect from its origins in an organization which makes its entire money by routing messages, having an independent way of finding out how a message should be routed is not really at the top of the priorities list. However, it does support alias establishment and querying, but only really in the context where the account holding institution is already known. So what do we need to do? We need to allow DFSPs to maintain the central identifier directories in a Mojaloop scheme, i.e. the central routing tables. And given an identifier, we need to be able to route a resolution request to the DFSP at which the identifier is registered. Okay? So this, again, it's a complicated slide, so I'm not going through it in detail, but essentially what it says is we could get by using the existing messages. And these are not ACRI, actually these are the ACMT ones, which allow the establishment and querying of the alias identifiers. So the summary out of that is we might be able to get by just with the existing messages, but we'd be using them in a way that they are not intended. They have no bulk version, so there is no obvious way for participants to say, here's my list of people, please register them to me. Now, we can get round that in the same way that we have, for instance, with bulk transfer requests, which is to allow the payment manager to shoulder some of the work so that the participant submits a list, it's broken down into individual requests by the payment manager. It's not nice, it's not pretty, but it could be done. And we may still want to extend ISO 20022 to expand to manage directories of one kind or another. But I think the consequence of that is that we can take the question of address resolution off the critical path for a Mojaloop version of ISO 20022. There are ways in which we could do it and improve them later. So that, I think, is probably good news. That's my ISO presentation. I never thought I'd get through it that fast. Anyone got any questions? Yeah.